I didn't like the way this bump out here was for the clearance for this fuel line and the electrical lines going up through that wing root. I had it made up. I think I put a dowel or something in there and formed that when I was first putting it together, when I was first making it, to make a entryway for that. And I knew I didn't need the one on this side, on the right side, to be as big as the one on the left side. Oh, I just used a dowel there. I went up quite a ways on that with that. Well, after getting everything together, it turned out that I didn't need to go up as far, because this fuel line just goes right up in here and then turns and goes over, and these electric lines the same way. They just go through that, just past that bump there at the entryway, and then they clear in there. They don't follow this window post up very far. So, and it was a little tighter than I had hoped. This it was probably fine on this fuel line, but I've got this piece of 3/8 inch fuel hose going over the fuel line to help to protect it as it goes around this corner, both to help with the bend, to keep it from kinking when I bend it around there, and provide keep it from chafing through on there, protect it going around that corner. And so that was a little bit tighter than I wanted. And then with these electrical lines going up there, they just didn't have quite as much clearance as I'd wanted either. So once I got done with the ELT stuff and the fuel tank stuff, I went ahead and put this all back on here, screwed it down a little bit, and I decided to take the heat gun and reform this a little bit. And so I heated it up, and I changed the form of it. This actually pooched out farther this way, and was tighter in this way. And when I heated it up, it relaxed in there against this fuel line better. And I just used this pencil. This is one of those little or big pencils like we used to use in the first and second grade when we were learning to write. And I just used that to go up in there to expand that a little bit, where it gives me more clearance for that electrical lines. And that worked just perfect. When I was setting this up, I took a little bit of aluminum foil and put over on the other side and put around this fuel line and these electrical lines so they wouldn't get heated up. It takes quite a bit of heat from the heat gun, and over quite a period of time to get that Kydex to form. Well, when I did that, I noticed this thing was kind of lumpy from forming it before. There was bumps and lumps in it and stuff like that. It didn't come out as smooth as I'd like to. And what I did when I formed it was I took the heat gun, and of course I was doing it all by hand, and I'd take the heat gun and heat it up, and then come along behind it with an ice bag to cool it off right away, so that it would hold its form a little, and it wouldn't take so long cooling off to hold its form. And I got this to, of course, roll over the top of that wing root form like that. And I noticed when I heated that up, it relaxed. This shape here came down and relaxed, and a lot of those lumps and bumps came out of it. In fact, they smoothed out pretty good. So I went ahead and went over that whole wing root there. Like I said, there was some lumps and bumps and stuff like that in it, and places where it came down over that post, or that stringer that goes along there, and kind of was concave in there and the top. And so I went ahead and put some screws in there along the bottom of that wing root panel, along the top of that window, that door rail, to hold it down. And I just went across that whole thing with the heat gun a couple of times, heated it up, and that relaxed and came out to a real nice shape. I was happy with it before. I thought it looked really good before, but now it really looks good. It smoothed that out real nice. So that side is the right side, and that's pretty much done now. I'm pretty happy with that. I like the way that fuel line goes up in there, and those wires go up in there. That's a lot smoother than it was, a lot nicer. Well, I've got the same problem there on the left side as what I had on the right side, only exaggerated. I put a pretty good sized block of wood in there and formed that Kydex around it when I made that wing root panel. You give plenty of room for all of the stuff that goes up through there. Oh, it's quite a bigger opening than the one on the right side was, but there's a lot of crap that goes up through there. There's a fuel line, of course. There's two antenna cables that go through there. There's two vacuum lines or pressure lines that go through there, air lines that go through there for the pitot system and the static system, one each. And then, of course, the nav light out on the end of the wing, and the landing light and the taxi light, and plus all of the electrical stuff for the headsets and stuff go through there. So it makes a pretty good bundle. And that opening that I had in there is just almost the right size, but I suppose if I hadn't put that piece of 3/8 inch fuel line around that fuel hose where it goes up through there, the rubber fuel line to guard it, it probably would have had plenty of room. But as it is, it winds up just being just a little bit tight. So I'm going to do the same thing with that side as I did with the right side here. I'm going to go ahead and heat that up and see if I can't open that up a little bit more and give everything a little bit more room in there, so it doesn't chafe and abrade as it goes through that wing root panel. Well, I've wrapped everything with aluminum foil to kind of protect it from the heat. That gets pretty hot, and that seemed to work on this right side pretty good. So aluminum foil will keep it from getting too hot. Anyway, I'll get that all tied down and stick the heater in there and see if I can't open that up a little bit. These wing root covers are held on. They were, I put them up here and heated them up and folded the top of them over this top former on this rib. And so they kind of clip on that and clamp on it. And they're pretty secure there. So before I started heating that one, I went ahead and put some screws in it to hold it down, hold it in position, and heated it up. This left one is a little different story. It comes down to this window sill here, this former, and then it's folded underneath this lip right here, and it's held in with there's a sliding window goes in here, and there's a track that goes in along here for that sliding window, and that's what holds this wing root cover in. Is that sliding window track is screwed onto this former here on this side. This is the former here. Oh, what I did was I clamped this up tight against that to hold it as tight as I could. It's hard to get clamps to hold on this because it's such a convoluted shape. But I pulled this wing root cover in tight to that, and then I drilled holes down through this former here, and that's what's going to hold that window channel up there when it gets put on. But I drilled these holes down through there and through this Kydex flange on this wing root cover, and then I just put a piece of angle aluminum in there. It's sacrificial, but I put that in there to help hold that Kydex in, to give it something to hold against, some friction on there. So that'll hold that panel in place while I heat this up. I wore out one heat gun working on that windshield and then doing all this Kydex stuff, and it was a pretty nice heat gun. It was a cheap Black & Decker one I got at a hardware store years ago, and it was getting pretty tired anyway. It had been well used, but working on that windshield really did a job on it. It still works, but it doesn't get as hot as it used to, and the fan doesn't blow. Well, my wife bought me this new one in Juneau. It's a Wagner, and it's lighter, but it's bulkier, and it's okay, but it's got these electronic controls on it. Instead of just a simple on-off switch, it's got electronic controls. You can adjust the heat on it, adjust the fan on it. When you go to turn it off, it's got a cool down period on it before it'll shut off. Anyway, it's kind of a pain because you can't just shut it off. Okay, I need something to hold that down, that shape right there while it cools off. I got it on the cool down mode now. It's still blowing warm air, but it's gradually cooling down. I'm holding that in so it holds its shape. And that's, let's see how that turned out. Okay, that's a lot better. That gives me a lot more room in there. Well, a little more room in there, but that's just enough room that everything can run through there now without chafing.